We continue with the 37th chapter of the book of Yirmiyahu. We go back to the time period of Tzidkiyahu. We're sort of vacillating between prophecies during the time of Yehoiakim and the time of Tzidkiyahu. Yehoiakim reigns from the death of his father. Ultimately, then Tzidkiyahu later comes on after Yechonia, and so now we have Tzidkiyahu. He's the last king of the first temple period. Elimelech melech Tzidkiyahu ben Yoshio tachat Kinayo ben Yoyakim, asher imlich Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel beretz Yudah. Excuse me. So Chonyahu or Yechonyahu, he's taken in the year 597 back to Babylon. Those are the Jews who submit, the Jews who Yirmiyahu sent letters to, the Jews who Yirmiyahu says are going to return to Israel, and in his place, Nebuchadnezzar places a new king, the nephew of Yechonia, is placed on the throne. Excuse me, the uncle of Yechonia is placed on the throne, and so he is the king when the temple will be destroyed. And not surprisingly, these people, like the people who came before them, they did not listen to Yirmiyahu's warnings. ben Shelemiah v'Tzefaniyahu ben Maaseya haKohen el Yirmiyahu anavi lemor hitpalel na v'adeinu el Adonai Eloheinu. This is the second time we've seen this request where Tzidkiyahu sends people to Yirmiyahu asking him to pray to God on our behalf. And right, it brings us back, of course, we mentioned this in the other chapter, to the time of Chizkiyahu, when wasn't the Babylonians, but it was the Assyrians who laid siege to the city. And there, it's not, they don't ask Yeshaya the Navi to daven for them. Chizkiyahu davens to God. And Yeshaya comes back in and says to Chizkiyahu, God has heard your prayers, and a miracle will happen. But that's not what happens here. In verse 4, now we're told sort of a narrative. Yirmiyahu is not yet put in prison. We've spoken about this over the course of the last number of chapters. Yesterday's chapter, where he is told by God to write everything down in a scroll, and he gives it to Baruch ben Neri and says to Baruch, you go and you read this publicly, because at that point in time, Yirmiyahu is in a prison. But in this story, he is not jailed, whether it be for his own safety, as at times it is, or whether it be so he does not cause distress and worry. And we'll see what they accuse him of in this chapter as well. And now this is a time where the people of Yehuda and Yerushalayim feel maybe things are turning in their way, because the Egyptians have come out to attack the Babylonians. And so the Babylonians, or the Kasdim, the Chaldeans, they leave Jerusalem for a matter of time, because Jerusalem and the Jews are obviously much smaller. The major part of the alliance against them, against the Babylonians, is led by the Egyptians. So we got to go kill off the Egyptians so we can come back and destroy Yerushalayim. But those Yerushalayim, especially the false prophets who are saying everything's going to be fine, they say, look, proof, just like the Assyrians ran away from us, so too now the Babylonians are running away. Nevertheless, Vayidvar Adonai Yirmiyahu Navi lemor. We're in verse 7 now. Ko amar Adonai Elohei Yisrael ko tomru al melech Yehuda sholech etchem elai l'darsheni hinei chel paro yotzei lachem le'ezra shav la'artzo Mitzrayim. So God says, go and tell the king who wants me, he wants you to come to me and pray. Tell him the army of Paro, which left, and they're coming here to defeat the Babylonians, and in that to help you, they will return to their land. V'shavu Kasdim, and the Egyptians will return to Egypt, and the Babylonians will return to Jerusalem. V'nilchamu al ha'ir hazot ulechadu usrufa v'esh. They will lay siege to it, they will capture it, and they will destroy it by fire. Ko amar Adonai, al tasi'u nafshotechem lamor haloch yelchu me'aleinu hakasdim ki lo yelechu. Don't delude yourself thinking that the Kasdim, the Chaldeans, will go away, because they will not. And in that language, I hear also that story of Chizkiyahu, when Rav Shakeh went up and he said, who are you going to rely upon? Are you going to rely upon the Egyptians? Or read, they will break in half. And in that way, Rav Shakeh, this person, the spokesperson of then the Assyrian king Sancherib, sounded the same as the king of Yehuda, Chizkiyahu, who said the same thing. And what Yeshaya was constantly telling them, you can't rely upon others. You have to rely upon God. That's what you needed to do at that time. Because even if you defeated all of the Chaldeans, their entire army, and only wounded men were left lying in their tents, they would still be able to burn the city. Doesn't matter what's done to them. I, God, have decreed that the city will be destroyed. And when the army of the Chaldeans raised the siege of Jerusalem on account of the army of Paro, so right, so now I'd say Yirmiyahu Yerushalayim. So now Yirmiyahu can leave Jerusalem, can go somewhere because right the siege has been lifted, so there is a greater chance of being able to move around. And so in verse 12, Yirmiyahu leaves Jerusalem Eretz Binyamin to go to Binyamin. We know he's from Anatot. We read about a couple chapters ago that he bought a field in Anatot to prophesy. Then the future of the Jews will return, and there will be fields that they own, and that they will be a great presence there, and that's where his home is. L'chalik misham b'toch ha'am. And he went to share in some property there among the people. That's his hometown. That's where he is. That's where he's supposed to be. He could go to them. He could pray with them. He could, and at times his fellow Anatot people were with him. At other times they wanted to kill him. Vayihu bashar Binyamin, and he's in the gates of Binyamin. B'sham bal kidut ushmo Yiriyah ben Shelemiah ben Hananiah. And there's a person there, Yiriyah. By posted Yirmiyahu Hanavi lemor elakastim atanofel. And he takes Yirmiyah and he grabs him and he says, "You are defecting. You are on the side of the Babylonians. Why are you leaving Jerusalem? Why are you going to the gates of Binyamin? This is a way so you could join our enemies, the Babylonians." Vayomer Yirmiyahu, sheker. Yirmiyah says, that's a lie. Eineni nofel elakastim. I'm not defecting to the Chaldeans. I'm going up to my hometown. I'm going to see my uncle or whoever it might be. V'lo shama elav. But Yirmiyahu doesn't listen to him. Vayitpos Yirmiyahu b'Yirmiyahu vayaveu el asarim. So Yirmiyahu grabs Yirmiyahu and he brings him to some governmental officials. Like Sefu hasarim al Yirmiyahu. The officials were angry. They were furious. Why is he leaving Jerusalem? Why is he going this way? It must be that he's leaving. He's going to join the Babylonians. V'hikuoto. And they beat him. V'natnu oto beit ha'esur. And they place him into a prison. There are different words that are used for prison in this chapter. We've had different places. We talked there in the past. There was the word bor was used at a time. Here we have beit hakela. We had a word used in the past, the word mishmar. But so we've had numerous different terms and expressions used to describe where Yirmiyahu, and that's part of what's going on here is understanding it. Times Yirmiyahu is seen as the greatest threat. Like here, he's being told he's defecting. He's a traitor. Maybe he's going to tell the Babylonians all about where they can attack Yerushalayim and how to overtake the Judean cities that are still around. And so here he's placed into this Beit Asur. And where is that? Beit Yonatan Sofer Kyoto Asur Beit Hakela. He's placed there in the house of, it's the place of a person named Yonatan, because they turned that into a jail. Kiva Yirmiyahu Beit Habor V'el Hachanuyot. And Yirmiyahu was placed, and again here, we're source. He's placed in the Beit Habor. He's placed in the pit. And to me, at least, right, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. When I hear somebody, a Jew, placed in the pit, I think back to Yosef. That's the way the jail is described in Egypt, if I remember correctly. It's called the Bor. Yosef was in the pit. Yosef, who ended up there because he ultimately he was saying things that his brothers didn't want to hear. He may have been an arrogant young man. He hadn't yet changed from that and transcended that and become somebody who understood that he was just a pawn and that not everything revolved around him. But Yirmiyahu here as well, he's saying things that people don't like. And they're accusing him, just like Yosef was accused of being, treacherous and against the family and against the dreams and against the hopes and the mission. That's what Yirmiyahu is described here. So there may be some similarities you can put there. And Yirmiyahu is there for a lengthy period of time. So at some point later, Tzidkiyahu the king, he calls for Yirmiyahu. So it's great. Whoever the governmental officials are in Binyamin or wherever he is, the king calls for this prisoner. He's going to go to the king's prison. And then the king asks him, Bebeito baseter. And the king questions Yirmiyahu in secret in his house. Vayomer, hayesh davar me'et Adonai. Vayomer Yirmiyahu, yesh. And Yirmiyahu says to the king, yes, I do have something from God. Right? The hope is here for the king that Yirmiyahu is going to be told The king is going to get good word from Yirmiyahu. And what is the word? Not surprising to those of us who are now in the 37th chapter of this book. Vayomer biad melech Bavel tinate. What is God's word to you? When you asked me before a while ago, and then I was put into this prison, God's word is, you will be delivered into the hands of the king of Bavel. Vayomer Yirmiyahu el melech Tzidkiyahu, mechatati lecha, v'la avadecha, v'la am hazeh, ki netatemoti el beit takeles. Yirmiyahu says, what did I do wrong that you're putting me in jail? Where are the prophets of yours who said the king of Babylon would never come to here? And that was, you can think back also, Yeshaya and Chizkiyahu in the generation where Yeshaya says to Chizkiyahu that God has listened to your prayers. And even though the Assyrians were at the gate, he says their arrow will not enter the city. Their feet will not enter the city. They will return home. And your prophets said similar things. They're not going to come here, but obviously they're wrong. Shmana Adoni Hamelech Tipolna Trinati Lefanecha V'al Tishiveni Beit Yonatan Sofer V'lo Amutcha. So first now Yirmiyahu says, you asked for me, I told you. And I haven't asked for you. Do not send me back to the house of Yonatan to die there. Right? If I'm in your house, the king, you can protect me. You obviously believe somewhat in what I have to say. You're coming to me as a conduit to give a message to God and to get a message from God. You may not listen to it, but don't send me back where I'm going to be beat up and I'm going to be killed. So here the king puts Yirmiyahu into a better place. We had this word used earlier in a chapter that was, in the future, we're talking about mishmar, a place that's guarded. Yirmiyahu here is in a place that is guarded. He's not being, this is now, before he was being punished. Now he's being hidden for his own safety. And the king treats Yirmiyahu properly. He gives him bread to eat. He's treating him properly. He's treating him kindly. And here we see, there are two things that I want to point out. One thing is, as I started with, that we're vacillating between the chapters of Yehoyakim and Tzidkiyahu. And in the chapters of Tzidkiyahu, in the chapter of Yehoyakim, right, in yesterday's chapter, if we think about it, there was this prophecy, they wrote it down, everybody was scared. It was going back to the time of Yoyakim's father, Yoshiyahu. Everybody's scared who reads the prophecies of Yirmiyahu. They're crying, they're worried, they bring it to the king. They're hoping the same way that Yoshiyahu, when he found or was brought to him the scroll of Devarim from the Beit HaMikdash and he started this tshuva, they hope that Yoyakim will do the same. And if you remember, of course, yesterday, what does Yoyakim do with Yirmiyahu's scroll? He throws it into the fire. He rejects it completely. Tzidkiyahu here is not as bad as Yirmiyahu. He does not reject it in the same way that Yehoyakim does. But does he listen? Does he submit? He doesn't. And maybe he doesn't submit because he still holds out hope, or maybe he doesn't submit because he is a king with little to no power. He's supposed to be placed there as a puppet king by Nebuchadnezzar. He rebels against Nebuchadnezzar, but does he have the full strength to be able to submit like Yirmiyahu is saying? Seemingly not. And so we have here ineffective leadership. We have here somebody who cannot do what is necessary, even though he's the king of Israel. And just one other thing that it reminds me of, at the end of the book of Melachim, we go back to the Yechoniah, mentioned earlier in this chapter, Kenayahu or Yechonia, who is the king who in 597 is taken back by Nebuchadnezzar back to Bavel, and he's placed in the jail. And after the years later, 37 years later, we're told that the Babylonian king takes Yechonia out of the jail. The same word, mibeit kele, takes him out of the jail, and he speaks nicely with him. And he places him in a place of prestige next to him in the royal retinue, and he would give him everyday bread all the days of his life. And in a sense, it sort of reminds me of that chapter. Reminds me of the end of the Book of Kings, where the king of Bavel is not going to give. He's not ready to give the Jews back their land. He's not ready to tell them to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, but it's saying there is hope for the future. And here too, at least that's what I think when I think of this chapter. Tzidkiyahu, he doesn't have the ability to, or the
Has he been disconnected?
Yeah, I think he's not on the screen anymore.
Too bad.
Yeah,
We got through most of it. So
yeah. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we got to the last verse.
You had a question.
nope, not for me.
Well,
All right, well, good to see you on screen, and hope to see you tomorrow, Friday.
yes,
Okay.
God willing.
Take care.
Yeah, God willing. Avril and Mike, before you sign off, I heard there was something going on at Federal Plaza tomorrow or Friday. Rabbi Shmuel, do you know something about what's going on in Federal Plaza? Or did
I heard
read that
something
right?
that there's going to be on Friday at 12:15, but I don't know the exact details yet. If you find out anything, please let me know, because I want to go to it too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think Aya was the one who posted it during your class, but she didn't post any details.
Yeah, let me
Okay.
see.
We'll
Maybe
call her.
I tried to Google it, but
there was
I
nothing.
didn't
Go to
find it.
the. Can you go to the JCRC's website, the Jewish Community Relations Council, see if they posted it?
It's Jewish community related. Yeah. Let's see.
Okay, I gotta go. I'll talk to you guys later. Let me know what you
Okay.
hear.
Okay.
Take
Okay.
All
care.
right.
Let me
Take
see.
care. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm on there.
Uh-huh. It's Jewish community. Let's see.
It looks like it's their general stuff, not like breaking news, what we're doing now.
Okay.
Israel at war. Do you see that? Maybe that says
For
something.
the Jewish community, it says it brings up Nashville, but let's see if I do Washington,
On the
DC.
7th.
Montgomery County and DC Jewish community. No, this is I'm sure they'll probably find it and post it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything either.
Yeah, this is
All right.
what I'm seeing now is Tuesday's it was a rally apparently Tuesday. Yesterday.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, well we'll look on the WhatsApp.
Okay. Thanks.
Take care then.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
Mm.